Hello, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Congrats, you made it to the last day of the finals. And yeah, thanks for coming in and checking out my workshop today. So my name is Vanessa. I'm a developer advocate at WalletConnect. So today what we're going to be going over is how to use a Web3 wallet SDK. But before we jump in, let's talk a little bit about what WalletConnect is. WalletConnect is a messaging layer, and it's a standard to connect wallets and DApps together. Web3 Wallet is the SDK that I'll be demoing today, and it's for wallets to connect to DApps. So it's a super easy tool for wallet developers if you're looking to get started. All right, so before we jump in code, I kind of want to have an idea if anyone really understands how wallets and DApps connect together, by show of hands. Okay, a couple, like 2 or 3. So let me explain for the broad audience. For those who like the formal definitions, you can go ahead and read the screen. This is directly from our glossary. But I like to explain this a little differently. You can think of when a DApp and a wallet want to connect, think of it as there's 2 friends and they want to play a computer game. And the first thing they need to do is they need to be connected onto the same network. And once they're on this network, then they can actually begin playing games. And so this is how we want to think about pairing and sessions. Pairing is the initial connection to the network that they're both connected on. And then anytime a DApp wants to send a proposal, wants to send a request to send or sign a transaction, this is where the session gets initiated. And the first thing that you're going to see is we have this object called the session proposal. And the session proposal gets initiated by the DApp, and it sends this object to the wallet, and basically what it's asking is, hey, here are a list of events, a list of methods, and a list of chains that I want to connect to. And then the wallet gets to decide whether or not they want to accept or reject that connection. These are probably one of the more important things you want to look at when you're thinking about session proposals, and it's these objects called namespaces. You'll notice that there's a required namespace and an optional namespace. And to give you kind of an idea of how they work, let's pretend that I have a DApp and I want whatever wallet I connect to, they always have to be connected with ETH mainnet. And so we'll pass that through the required, and then I'm also passing in an array of the methods that I also want to have access to. And I'll do the same thing with chains, as you can see, EIP, :1, as well as the events that I also want to be using. And let's say that I want to have an optional chain that maybe I want to connect to poorly. And so I don't want to not allow a wallet to connect to my DApp if they don't support poorly. And so this is why I would send it in the optional versus the required. Because if a wallet doesn't accept everything in the required, the connection just won't work. And so I've started a demo wallet repo, so if you kind of want to follow along, you can scan that QR code. And we're going to just kind of go through the different file structure so that you can, we'll just walk through all the different functions, because there's a lot of code and I don't want to have everyone try to start coding live with me. But you'll have the repo ready, and you can also run it locally as well. So I'll give everyone a sec to get that QR code. What we're going to be looking at is this project structure. We're going to be focusing on these 4 files. All the other ones, we'll touch briefly on what they are, but basically they're just a bunch of libraries and utils that we'll use to make our DApp development, our wallet development a lot faster. Cool, so let's jump into the code. All right, so we're going to kind of start with, you can just kind of take a look at the libraries here. There's really nothing crazy happening. Yeah, here's all the libraries. And so we already have these all hard-coded, a bunch of different chains that you'll have available. Make that a little larger too. So let's jump into utils. This is where we're going to basically kind of begin your project here. So we'll be importing here some of the different types and core as well from the WalletConnect library. And what we want to do here is we want to create our wallet first. And so we'll do that by calling create or restore EIP 155 wallet. If you're curious on what this does, you can jump in the code and kind of see how that works. We're going to pass in this project ID. I did hard code it in, but you probably shouldn't do this, although it's already going to live on the front end. So there are other ways that you can make sure you hide this in a React Native application. And so we first begin with initializing Web3 wallet. We're going to pass in that core instance that we just created, as well as some metadata. Oh, make it larger?
Oh, yes, more.
Yeah, please. Now it's okay.
All right.
Yes, it's okay. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so, okay, we've initialized our Web3 wallet SDK. And so now we just want to initialize it. And so we're just kind of using some JavaScript to get this started. And this is kind of really all we'll be using WalletConnect utils for. And the main stuff really happens here in app.tsx. So I've kind of divided the imports in different sections so we can kind of follow along what's going on here. And the first couple of imports are going to be the React hooks, React Native components, styling, text encoding library, and Expo component registration. We're using this component called barcode scanner so that we can take pictures of the QR code. For these, we are going to be importing some WalletConnect types, utils, and a compatibility layer to use React Native. We'll then be using a custom WalletConnect initialization hook and utils, which these are the ones we just created in that last file. And then lastly, we'll also be importing a library. And also some custom modals that we'll go through in a bit. I don't want to go through all the use state stuff because I feel like that kind of gets boring and repetitive. I'd rather just go into the functions and kind of see how this works. So the first thing we're going to want to do, so we think back, earlier I talked about this pairing in this session that happens. And so whenever you see the QR code, the WalletConnect QR code, and your phone scans it, it creates a pair. And so once this pair is created, then we still need to receive that session proposal. The wallet needs to receive that session proposal. And so we can either accept or reject that. So let's take a look at what the function for handle accept looks like. And we have a lot of stuff going on, so we'll break it down. Firstly, we kind of want to make sure that there's a current proposal available to us. And what we're doing here is we're essentially pulling out the namespaces from this proposal. So if you remember, we have that required and that optional namespace. So we're going to first create an object outside, and then we're going to loop through the required as well as the optional namespaces. And so we're going to grab the accounts, the chains, as well as the events and methods. So that's what we're doing up here. So we're just going through the required namespace object. I'll minimize that. And we're doing the same thing with the optional namespaces. Down here is going to be the approved namespaces. So I mentioned that the wallet will always have a list of what chains they're going to accept, because they're not going to just accept everything. And this is a util build tool that we have at WalletConnect so that it helps wallets figure out how to actually pass these namespaces so that this connection doesn't break. And so what I'm passing in here is my wallet. I only want my wallet to accept ETH mainnet. So I've done that here on line 96. And the methods that I want to also allow will be ETH send transaction and personal sign. I'll do the same thing with events, changed, accounts changed. And then for the accounts, I'll be grabbing the account from the wallet. And we do that up here. So when we go through that proposal, we'll also be receiving the wallet address when we get that as well. And the same thing happens with optional namespaces. We get the push the chain and the account, and we concatenate it together. All right, so once we have the approved namespaces, then we're going to call Web3 Wallet, and we're going to call approved session. So we call this function, and we pass in two things. We're going to pass in the ID, and the ID we're getting from the proposal. So we pull it out from like our current proposal up here. And then we're setting namespaces to approved namespaces, because we want to make sure that we're using that util. And then we're going to be setting some things for the UI. So we'll want to get rid of the modal. We'll want to set the proposal to undefined. And then because it's successful, we'll set that to true. Let's look at what happens when we're going to reject this connection. So we'll take the current proposal, we grab the ID, and then we call the reject session function on Web3 Wallet. Also pass in the ID, but this time we're passing in this reason, and it's user rejected methods, and this get SDK error is a util that we're importing up here. Cool. So once we've got handle reject, we've got handle accept, we're gonna want to figure out like how are we passing in that URI that we're scanning, and so we can take a look at handle barcode scanned. And we can see where this is getting called down here in this component. So whenever we scan it, we're going to grab the URI. And then we're going to call this pair function. Let's take a look at what this pair function does. What pair is going to do, it's going to create it's going to call a Web3 wallet pair. And it's going to then create that pair function that I mentioned when the QR code gets scanned by the wallet. And then once we have that pairing session, we can then actually add sessions to it. Oh, sorry, one thing I did miss. When you get that session proposal, well, I guess it's nothing really we have to cover, sorry. So from here, let's see if, having some issues with my simulator. But in the meantime, I can kind of show you what this should look like. So let's, so I'll pause it for a moment here. So when this UI, like what this project already has, when you run it, you're gonna initially see your ETH address. And we got this by creating the Web3 wallet. And then we're gonna click on scan QR code. And this is that component that will open up your camera. And so we'll scan really any WalletConnect QR code you can scan. And this is, once you scan it, it creates that pairing. And then once it creates that pairing, it then creates this session proposal. And this is what we're seeing here on this modal here. So you'll see that it's requesting the chains, which is mainnet, the methods that I want to be getting permissions to, as well as the events, and an accept or a cancel button. And so we're going to hit accept. And you'll see it on the DApps side, but on the DApps side, it'll get connected. And we can also then, once we're connected, we'll be able to disconnect. And that is, let's see. Cool. All right, so we kind of can jump through this UI as well. Let me actually just open this up on Simulator. Does somebody know the command? This is my first time doing React Native, so Does anyone know the command to get these?
MPX expo start.
So that's to get it on my phone, but do you know which one it is?
You can do it.
Oh, I can still do that one?
Yeah. And then once it runs, you can press I. Oh, yours is different.
Thanks, Ian.
Hold on a minute.
All right, while that's loading, we can take a look at the other modals here. So let's take a look at that modal pairing, and let's see what we're getting. Actually, let's go back to app really quick, because we're going to be passing down some functions, so we should probably take a look at these first. We're going to be passing down handle accept, which is what we went over, handle reject, modal visible, set modal visible, and the current proposal. So having that information, we can see what's going on here. So we're just grabbing everything from current proposal that we passed down, and we're going to just grab the name, URL, methods, events, chains, and icon. And then we're going to just pass it through so that you can see that modal that comes up, and you get the option to either accept or reject. Still loading, saying opening project. Okay, yeah, and we've got our styling down there. And let's take a look at the sign modal. For an example, while we have this loading, I'm going to show you what this looks like on a web wallet, but our example is on a React Native wallet, but you'll kind of get the gist of how this works. Getting somewhere. Nothing like live demos, right, guys?
That Wi-Fi though.
We can go back to the code while that's loading. What I've kind of demonstrated so far, in a way, is connecting your wallet to your DApp, which is, we do that by going through that session proposal and accepting or rejecting that. Now, when you want to do something more than just connect, like sign a transaction or send a transaction, what we want to do is we want to then send a session request, and this is what we'll be using the sign modal for. Let's look at app.js and kind of see what are the functions that are getting passed down to sign modal. We have sign modal visible. This is just a prop. We're setting it, we're passing in request event data, and then request session. Okay, cool. So when we pass the request event, this is very similar to a session proposal, but what's going to change here is that it's actually going to be letting you know what method is actually going to be used. And so we'll just basically grab all that information, similar to what we did with the pairing modal, with the current proposal. This time we're using this request event. And so we'll take all those consts, and then we'll be passing them into our functions, either on approve or on reject. And so what we do on approve, it's kind of pretty simple. We take the response, and the response is going to be the request event, and we're calling this approve EAP 155 requests. And this is something that we're also, going to be importing from our utils. So let's take a look at what that's doing. All right, lots happening here. Again, similar to the other ones, we're always going to be grabbing those params and ID, because we grab the namespaces from params, and ID is something we generally pass to our function when we're approving or when we're rejecting a session. And so, a lot of cons here, but basically these are going to be all the different methods that are available to you, and depending on which one we're going to be getting, we'll then grab the signature by calling wallet dot sign transaction, and then we'll pass in that signed transaction, which is coming from the request earlier that we passed in. So it's that session request. All right, hopefully that will load eventually, but let's go back to the code. And let's see. That's kind of all I got, everyone. I was supposed to show you a demo, but we're kind of having some internet issues here, and nothing's really loading for me. But if you're able to clone that repo, and if you run it locally, let me show you how you can also get a project ID in the meantime. This is what it looks like once it's loaded. So if you go into projects, you'll have the ability to just create a new project. You can call this ETH Barcelona. Okay, let's just pretend it was created. The project information will be in here. And what's really cool with this is that you get access to a lot of different metrics. And so we're actually currently building out our UI and adding a lot of other features to our cloud platform. So if you have any suggestions or things that you'd like to see, definitely let us know, because we are in the planning portion of it. And so, yeah, all the user feedback is very welcome. That's kind of all I've got, everyone. Sorry I couldn't do the full live demo. Are there any questions? Cool. Well, glad to give your time back to you. It's a Friday, so have a great rest of your afternoon, everyone. Thank you.